Hello everyone and welcome to the webinar on pivoting to digital success, why mobile IoT testing is a key to greater customer experience. A few logistics before we start. This is going to be a recorded webinar, so if you do not want to be on a recorded line, please hang up now. Also, at the very end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A section. Please enter any questions that you may have throughout the presentation in the Questions tab, and we'll address those at the end. I would like to introduce you to our speakers for today. First, we have Mr. Sanjeev Singh. Sanjeev is an experienced leader in information technology strategy and implementation. At McMeekin, he is the head of testing practice and looks after testing-related initiatives globally. He has served as an advisor consultant to many big and small companies, helping them in setting up their IT organization, reducing IT costs, product branding, setting up the offshore team, and much more. Mr. Singh has completed his master's degree from Carson-Newman University, Tennessee, US. Our second speaker for today is Mr. Kyle McMeekin. Kyle currently serves as Vice President of Channel at Cobiton, which is a leading mobile enterprise platform designed to help global enterprises deliver flawless mobile experiences. In his day-to-day, he works with many partners to help their key customer accounts tackle some of their most complex challenges around their mobile strategy and initiatives. Prior to Cobiton, Kyle spent several years in the enterprise DevOps space, working at Tricentis and QA Symphony, where he served as a solutions engineer and spearheaded partnerships with AWS and MSFT. I will just quickly run you through today's agenda. The points covered in today's webinar will be our view on digital transformation, the importance of a true consumer experience, the complexity of mobile and explosion of IoT services. With that, thank you again for joining us for our webinar. I will now hand it over to Sanjeev to take it forward.
Thank you, Cheryl. Carl, if you can go to the next page, please. Okay. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all the audience joining from. I can see lots of people there joining from all over, from US, from Middle East, from Asia, from Europe, all over I see. So again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all audience. We'll try to make this, more exciting, informed discussion so that audience can reap the benefit out of this webinar. Starting with McMeekin. So we are a global consulting solution and services company. We have positioned ourselves as a solutioning company and not just an IT company. Design thinking, it sits core of our any solution. Anything we do, design thinking, it sits at the core of our any solution. Very quickly, if I have to explain our offering, it sits into major 5 buckets, I would say: business transformation, data science analytics, platform technology transformation, brand marketing transformation, and digital transformation. Across verticals, business verticals we operate, just to name few of them, are banking and financial, media and entertainment, oil and gas, public sector, retail, CPG, restaurants, healthcare, manufacturing. We have, Cheryl, why can't I? Okay, I think I. Just one sec. All right, it's better now. Sorry about that. Lots of strategic partnership we have. So we are Microsoft Gold. We are Microsoft Gold partner. We are SAP Gold partner, and many other technology, platform we partner with. 20 years of experience we have it in industry. More than 1,600 customer we have served and we are serving. Uh, uh, Various offices we have. Three design thinking and user experience lab we have, world-class lab we have, that is in US, South Africa, and also in India. Utilizing our old delivery center, which is in US, in India at various locations. In South Africa, we are capable of serving customer 24/7. We are GDPR compliant, ISO certified, CMMI company. Uh, Next, please. So today we will be more focusing on digital transformation and digital assurance. Uh, we all are very much familiar with, that's what I assume. And when we look at any enterprise, either a big one or a small enterprise, digital transformation, the landscape, it is so complex. So starting from either we start from the new edge, technology and application like mobile app and going beyond, uh, web application to the mainframe, or starting from legacy application mainframe and AS400 to the new age application, web apps and any other app. When we talk about the digital transformation, it is so complex because if you look at your IT and business landscape, almost it touches anything and everything. So you are dealing with multiple platforms. You are dealing with multiple business areas. You have to deal with the security. You have to deal with very complex data. You have to deal with very complex infrastructure, not only in-house. You have to deal with maybe third-party infrastructure, maybe third-party, you know, uh, products and solutions. So many IoT devices, so many other digital devices like mobile. Uh, you have AI, you have ML, various browsers we have, right? Now, if we look at all of these, it becomes so complex. Now, in this complex IT business landscape, you have a customer who wants your solution, who wants your service, and they want the solution and service in very seamless fashion. I will be very much focusing on one aspect of digital transformation today, which is mobile. Now, when we look at digital transformation journey, mobile is playing a big role because the world population, if you look at, probably we have more devices, uh, mobile devices and IoT devices than the world population. That itself, it signifies that end user, they are consuming your solution and your services through the mobile devices. Now when we provide any solution, it has to be very seamless. The experience has to be very seamless, no matter one is using Apple phone or any Android phone or BlackBerry or Nokia or any brand. How we provide seamless experience, it's not building the solution, it has to be tested. You don't want to build solution, give it to end customer, and then they start complaining or reporting the pain area. So we have to test it. Now test automation, and we have to test it very very fast. Now very fast, we have been very much used to test automation, that automation will expedite it. But now we are living in the era that speed is a big factor in digital transformation journey. We don't have a week of time to run test automation. Now, what we were doing in a week, now we have to do it maybe multiple cycle. We want to run it in a day, 1,000 test script. We want to run it maybe in a day, maybe a couple of times. So how we expedite that? And that's all we do. We have our own framework, and using some of the platform, today we will talk about very specific to Cobiton platform. We are expediting those test execution, and we are helping customer to find the flaws if there is any, and deliver the product which can be seamlessly used by the end users. Can we go to the next page, please? Now, this is just a depiction of the complex IT. In testing world mostly. If you look at digital transformation, I'll be very focusing on the left hand side. What you see, the digital transformation, the vertical. It's not just the functional. Your smart digital testing, what we do here at Nihilent is it's a right from defining your strategy, your functional testing, your multiple browsers, your ETL, your API testing, your IoT devices, right? Omni-channel, usability, accessibility, security you have to consider, right? Data part you cannot ignore. So database testing, and database, when I say, it's not only database, your database testing, if you are dealing with data lake or enterprise data warehouse, or maybe BI analytics reporting. So digital transformation, the ecosystem, it is so complex that you have to perform various types of testing, and that also has to be with a reasonable speed. That means automation has to be there. Now, it's not a routine automation. Your automation has to be very intelligent, so that the work what you are doing in a week, now the same thing you want to repeat it maybe a couple of times in a day. And that's where we use some of our proprietary frameworks, some of the platform like Cobiton when it comes to mobile testing. Next, please, Kyle. Uh, this is again very much similar to, so digital assurance strategy and engineering. This is one of Nihilent very focused area where we consider user experience. That's a very prime thing when we are doing any testing in digital transformation space. Experience, emotional connect. Now that's one of the key thing. Very quickly, I'll talk about how you test the emotion, right? When I'm using a mobile app, how you can test it before launching in the market, that as a user, I'm happy, I'm sad, right? I gave up at certain point in time. Now we have the capability in-house, framework and proprietary tool, where we can precisely, in terms of number, we can quantify the results in terms of number. So we do have capability to test those. Uh, Social analysis, right? I mean, you have the product, and fraction of second someone is writing some feedback, right? Either it could be good or could be bad. How we test those things? It's coming in a text, right? So those we all consider when we talk about the digital assurance, and that's the reason we call it digital assurance, which is a bit different than your functional testing or any other routine testing. Your web, your mobile, any COTS product like SAP, any of the CRM, any Oracle financial application, analytics and reporting, cloud platform. Again, it's a huge complex. IoT devices, right? Because you have, let's say, flying in aircraft, right? From sitting, in the cockpit, your seat, and anything you see, it's all over. It's fitted with IoT devices. Now, how we test it, and it has to be tested very precisely, very accurately. And that's the reason we call it digital assurance. And it's very important in our digital transformation ecosystem. Next, please. So Kyle, now from here, I'll hand it over to Kyle, who will talk about more of the platform Nihilent uses to provide solution in mobile space, serving various customers across the globe. Kyle, over to you, please.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sanjeev, and welcome everyone, and appreciate everyone spending some time with us today to walk through this webinar. Just to pick up a little bit where Sanjeev left off, I think he did a great job kind of describing all the complexities and interdependencies that companies kind of have to tackle as they embark on these large digital transformation efforts. As the title of the webinar might allude to, what we want to take a closer look at today is what I believe to be a very big shift as it relates to digital transformation initiatives and the impact that not only mobile, which may seem obvious, but IoT is having on the success of these transformations. What you see here is a survey done by McKinsey & Company that surveyed a few thousand different organizations around the globe and asked them, which of these digital technologies, tools, or methods are you guys implementing that are making an impact on the success of the digital transformations that you're embarking on? Unsurprisingly, I think a lot of groups have moved into more modernizing, various web technologies, moving from mainframe to perhaps more SaaS-based products, which you'll notice in the bucket 2 here. I think the interesting call out on this is that both mobility and IoT are in the top 5 for not only the success of these transformations, but really the biggest delta and measurement of success, right? So you can see then this dark blue shade. These are companies that had successful transformations versus just other groups that use these, but perhaps weren't as successful as far as some of the initiatives that they were undergoing. So delta of about 15 here within the mobility and about 12 here within the IoT space. So the takeaway that we've gathered is that these 2 factors tend to often be kind of the forefront and real pillars to determine if some of the digital transformation projects that Sanjeev was referencing will or will not be successful. And for us, the way that we would define those digital transformations is obviously a very large way to categorize that, and you'd probably get a lot of definitions, but it's essentially the business allowing them to implement new technologies to tap into additional revenue streams, improve customer experience and retention, and then get their hands on data that they can mine to make more informed business decisions. Another interesting part of this survey is a couple pillars here that I'll call out that have been identified by McKinsey & Company as really key factors of success. The biggest one is obviously having digital tools to allow the business to get access to some of that data. And one I think that we'll focus on a lot today as we kind of discuss the emergence of IoT devices is really empowering enterprises, workforces to take advantage of some of this new digital technology, not just to implement it for their consumers, but allow some of their workers to leverage it as well to make their jobs more successful. And I think we've seen examples of this with workers at fast food restaurants using handholds or tablets or other IoT devices to increase how effectively they can move people through a fast food line, right, and get their food quicker. So there's all types of things that have been happening, I think, not just on the consumer side, but for the business's own employees as well to take advantage of. And obviously this survey calls that out very well. Just to move along with some of the agenda items that we talk about, let's focus in a little bit more on mobile and kind of the importance of defining a true legitimate customer experience for the clients. I think if you go out into the market and you take a look at different vendor sites, ones that help with QA or ones that help with fulfillment or banking and processing, they're always talking about things that enterprises should be keeping in mind to increase earnings, to increase their time to market, to gain a competitive edge against some of their competitors in the space. For retail groups, how do you prevent shopping cart abandonment? Ultimately, it boils down to business, right? I think the biggest part of why the mobility craze and kind of the emphasis around completing some of these successful digital transformations is to ultimately increase revenue, right, for your organizations or the organizations that you may work with. So that business is really comprised of all of those other items like loyalty and brand recognition and all of that you see. With that said, it's interesting to, if you kind of ask around, like, what makes a good consumer experience, right? What makes people want to ensure that they can keep using their mobile device, either through a native app or a mobile browser, to access information, right, or to a product or a service. And I think the Linux group has seen lots of this as well in their accounts of, hey, how do we ensure that as we're going through and doing some of this quality assurance testing, right, we're keeping these things in mind. And for me and for Cobaton, it really boils down to three core areas, right? Does the app or mobile browser, right, function as the user would expect? Is there very intuitive flow and design? When I tap on a button, does it make sense of where I'm directed? In addition to that, the performance onion is pretty complex, right? Does the phone, operate well if I have many applications open at once? Does the application perform well if I'm on a bad network, or if I'm on 5G versus 4G versus 3G versus Wi-Fi? How does it operate across different geographies? So there's all types of things relevant to that performance bucket to ensure that from a experience perspective, right, that consumer has a positive experience. They're not frustrated with load time of the app because it's designed poorly. And then the last and final bucket would be more so around the visual aesthetics of it, right? Does it look and feel right? Does it work on my my iPhone that I have in my pocket, but then I can go use that app on a larger screen, or perhaps a tablet, right? And still not, images aren't rendering improperly or overlapping or moved off page due to those different dynamics, right, of the actual device itself. So again, to kind of summarize this, we think this is very critical as teams are embarking on this whole mobile initiative, and we'll talk about a little bit here how I think ultimately the emergence of some of IoT and the dependence that a lot of enterprises have on making successful IoT projects work goes hand in hand with some of the mobility components that we've seen probably over the last 6 to 7 years. Okay, so if we talk a little bit about the complexity here, right? What makes mobile so hard, and how is IoT perhaps making this even more challenging as different products are being tested in more of like an end-to-end scenario, something that I'd be like to discuss right now. I think it's good to take a lens kind of on how you would segment the mobile maturity market. And this is predominantly, I would say, over the last, like I mentioned, 5 to 7 years, groups that usually have a mobile first mindset, we'll kind of work our way from right back to left, are usually the ones where mobile is absolutely critical to their business, right? If we don't have a mobile app, we will not succeed. We will not be able to pay our employees. Mobile is pretty much everything. It's our lifeline as far as our organization goes. So I would put examples of this of being, like Uber, right? Every user that they have is predominantly accessing their business, booking rides, booking business through a mobile application. You can think of groups like Robinhood, where a lot of their users are interested in doing trading and all of that via the mobile application, right? So for these groups, it makes sense that, hey, we have to have a mobile strategy. We have to have some sort of way to drive a positive consumer experience by making sure the app functions and performs and works across all these different devices. The second category there is really the mobile centric, which, I would define as one saying, hey, mobile is very important to us. It drives some revenue and business. Maybe they don't define themselves as a mobile first company, but it's groups like banking, right, financial services that obviously want to keep up and ensure that they have ways in which their consumers can actually, deposit checks and do their banking through the mobile device, which most people in today's day and age are doing. So it's something that's absolutely critical and central to their business to support. And then the final bucket would be more like mobile aware. So these would just be groups like, hey, yes, we'll create a mobile website, or maybe we'll have a mobile app, but it's not really important to us. Perhaps a lot of our product isn't centered around mobile or access via mobile component. I think what we'll get into a bit later on is the way that we used to segment this is really changing, right? I don't think the importance and reliance on having a good mobile experience should be thought of in these buckets, saying like, hey, I either have an app and it's very important to have a strategy around this, or I don't, because we're not really a heavy mobile company. The emergence of IoT, my thesis is that ultimately this paradigm is going to shift, and a lot of groups that perhaps were mobile aware beforehand better start thinking about mobile, because they're likely working with IoT devices that in some capacity interact with a mobile application of sorts. So I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So for the groups, right, that, again, if I backtrack, kind of fall into this mobile critical, mobile centric bucket, these are usually things that they're asking, right? Hey, I'm designing this new application, I'm designing this new consumer experience. How do I ensure that my app works across, different devices and operating systems? How do I ensure my application works on a larger iPhone than versus a smaller one as far as resolution sizes go? What if I'm actually accessing this application from a certain geography where that carrier provider that I'm using is different than the one like Verizon or AT&T? And lastly, how do I actually know that for all the consumers or users that are accessing my app or my mobile website, that I can support the various iPhones versions they have, the older Android versions they have, certain phones that are perhaps more popular in different geographies than they are in others. So what groups will usually turn to are really helpful reports like this. So this actually comes from one of Kobutan's partners, Science of Mobile, and they usually produce reports on a quarterly basis to kind of detect different trends, right, around the world as far as popularity of different makes and models of phones. In North America alone, there's over 16,000 different types of devices that consumers have that they're using for what we would, today classify as a smartphone. So these reports are extremely helpful, right, to help tackle some of these questions here that groups are facing, right? Which devices should I be testing on? How should I go about testing it? Which ones are popular by certain geographies? So I think these are very helpful reports. Again, our team here at Kobutan uses these to do some number crunching around devices that we provide for our customers in our public cloud. However, I think these kind of reports are really only helpful for the groups that are mobile critical and mobile centric, right? So a lot of the groups that perhaps have some sort of general awareness around mobility, historically, in my opinion, perhaps have not paid much attention to this because it's not something as mission critical to their business or perhaps some of the digital transformation efforts that they're taking on. I do think that this is changing, and the reason why is really the emergence of IoT. So there is an interesting stat from Gartner that by the end of this year, there will be 20 billion IoT devices connected and over 75 billion IoT devices connected by 2025. And I think really what we're going to start to see is a very interesting dynamic where perhaps some of those mobile aware companies that didn't usually focus too much on a kind of mobile strategy or mobile solution are almost going to be forced to, because they're now going to ultimately be having IoT devices that unsurprisingly probably will interact with mobility in some sense. So these could be things like, energy meters. These could be things like autonomous vehicles, right, that you can control through a mobile app or mobile device. All types of things that, yes, these might not be the Ubers of the world that are absolutely mission critical to have a mobile application, but the point is that the emergence of all these different wearables, all these other different IoT devices, very, very, very likely will be chatting with mobile via Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, you know, all types of different communication styles, and ultimately be then critical to, of course, be tested to ensure that these new initiatives and projects and devices that are being made available to consumers or internal business stakeholders are successful and kind of fall in line with that same mobile experience that many consumers expect to this day. So the point again is, like, I don't believe that the way that we would segment historically, that whole mobile maturity bucket is always black and white, right? It's not binary. I think there's going to be, and we're seeing this already, and I'll give some examples of this with very large kind of emergence of these different IoT devices and how these devices interact with mobile applications that the consumers are accessing them from. And then in addition to that, just really a lot of these end-to-end test scenarios, right? Sanjeev did a great job kind of discussing, hey, there's database testing, there's API testing, there's functional testing, performance testing. I mean, there's so many different technologies that are ultimately kind of touched upon when we're doing these full end-to-end based test scenarios. So even for the groups that, again, might not have a mobile application, it's very likely that through some of these complex kind of enterprise situations that we uncover, that mobility is involved in that in some capacity, right? It does have some sort of responsibility in these end-to-end scenarios to ensure that data is flowing properly or the experience is proper for these groups. Okay, if we stop pulling up ads here. So let's give it some examples of this through kind of what I would probably initially have classified as mobile aware companies, but not ones that you would necessarily think of as mobile centric or mobile critical. What we've actually seen over at Cobiton is, especially within the medical sector, give me one quick second here. Apologize for that. 2021, still dealing with dogs and kids and all that. So anyway, within the medical sector, developing these new wearable devices, right? Ones that can detect heart rate, one that can detect pulse, ones that measure blood sugar after doing a little reading. These all interact with mobile, right? So a user can actually on their phone pull open an application and get detections of the pacemaker, right, that's in their heart and how that's performing. They can do analysis on for diabetes based on a device that is connected to an app on the phone. So for these medical companies, right, a lot of these wearables, a lot of these new emerging technologies are critical, right, for them to allow to complete some of their overarching digital transformation initiatives. But the point is that the mobility aspect is critical to this, right? So these consumers are still accessing these wearables on different Android versions, different iOS versions, different types of phones, depending on where they're located in the world. And obviously, you would want to ensure that as a medical provider, right, that these different IoT or embedded devices that you're creating work well with the avenue in which your users are accessing them from, which is going to be their mobile device. So again, that's usually done over Bluetooth and has some sort of proximity constraints to it, but something that I have seen and been very interested in is kind of understanding how some of these groups, especially within the medical sector, are keeping pace, completing some of their digital transformation efforts and journeys, all while ensuring that the experience that in applications that they're developing, although they might not be full baked, native applications, there is an absolutely critical layer of mobility to those and how they interact with the devices and solutions that they're providing to service their consumers. Within the energy sector, so I alluded to this a bit earlier, again, historically, I wouldn't classify energy companies as like mobile first. Hey, mobility is going to be the absolute cornerstone or flagship product within our company. But we've seen, through their own digital transformation efforts, new product lines get created. You can think of things like smart meters, right, that allow consumers to perhaps pull open their utility report, check out how much energy they're using within their home. They're doing that through their phone, right? So the again, the idea here is that these energy companies aren't sitting there saying, hey, we need, the most impressive rockstar mobile application. That's not historically where their focus has been. It's been more on, hey, we're generating this new smart meter. We think it can help us, accumulate these net new customers, retain our existing customers. It kind of helps differentiate from our competitors. So many of the things that we talked about and Sanjeev referred to around making these digital transformations a success. Again, the point still stands though that these smart meters are likely exchanging information, being accessed through a consumer's mobile phone or device, and thus it's critical that groups in that perhaps have been more in the mobile aware category are starting to really think through mobility, how it interacts with some of these new devices that they're creating, and really getting ahead of that. And then last but not least, from the automotive perspective, all the new heads-up displays, entertainment systems in the phone. I mean, you can think of even years ago, the ability to connect your device to your car stereo system through Bluetooth. I mean, these are all things that typically want to be validated, right, by some of these providers to ensure that, hey, this version of Bluetooth on this given device is accessible and can be hooked into the car. Then obviously that's evolved quite a bit with some of the new heads-up displays and whatnot that have been created and made accessible within the automotive industry. So again, across all three, medical, energy, automotive, there's obviously various other sectors as well that I think historically will need to start rethinking, right, how mobility interacts with these devices and new technologies and product lines that they're creating. And then obviously the ones that have always been mobile centric or mobile first based companies will still have many of the same questions around, ensuring that consumer experience, being able to ultimately cover a wide number of devices and doing that in a very seamless way. As far as recommendations and considerations go, I mean, again, for groups that I think what we reviewed earlier around like, hey, how many devices are being accessed and how many different makes and models do we need to test? Those are still great considerations to take into effect as well. I think as a lot of groups are starting to embark on these digital transformation efforts, the biggest one is just understanding, probably point 2 here around like what technologies and systems are we dealing with? As Sanjeev mentioned, right, there's obviously a lot of complexity, different types of technology, mainframe apps, web-based apps, progressive web apps, all those type of things that you're taking into account. My suspicion and thought is that mobile will be some part of that. So it's important to understand like, hey, which technologies or other systems that we're validating or building, where and how does mobile fit into that, right? Is it as imperative as the lifeline of our business? Is it something that is going to be instrumental to ensuring that some net new products that we're creating actually work, because this is how our users are going to be accessing them? And then I think ultimately, even if you're not building right that mobile mission critical application or a website, just really understanding how mobility, if at all, plays into some of the broader successes of other digital transformation efforts. So just some things to keep in mind as things kind of progress through, and some things that I think that will be interesting to see unfold over the course of the next probably 1 to 3 years as we kind of ramp up the number of IoT devices that are coming to market. I think we're going to see a lot of interesting scenarios of how those devices interact with the most popular way consumers do, which of course, as everyone knows or probably addicted to, is the smartphone. So it's something we've definitely got our eye on over here at Cobaton. We've been working with our partners at Nalent to tackle some of their customer challenges as well as around how we can work together to drive and service companies that are looking to embark on some of these more complex transformations that have a need to make sure that from a mobile perspective, the consumer or even internal business experiences are flawless. That's really our mission over here in helping companies achieve those results. So with that said, happy to pause for any sort of Q&A that the team might have, or Sanjeev, if there's anything else that you wanted to add to that, I'm all ears. But any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat window, and we'd be happy to field those over the next 10 to 15 minutes or so.
So Kyle, very nicely you covered almost the entire landscape. I would like to share my personal experience, and that may simplify, uh, the mobile age where we are and where we are heading. So earlier I was watching television, I was listening to radios, I was reading book, which I transitioned to maybe Kindle. Today I watch my phone, I read my phone, I listen to my phone. So when we talk about digital transformation, when we provide solution for, when we are providing solution in digital transformation, transforming the for any enterprise, big or small. Yes, it is complex, right? From mainframe to so many application, COTS product, database, and all those. But we cannot live without mobile devices. Not only mobile devices. If we look at company like Tesla, uh, we have other customer like oil and gas, right? The well, right, where they do the drilling of the oil. Every single system, or at the macro or micro level, there are so many digital devices and IoT devices. How we test it? We don't want to wait for the failure. We want to test it before we launch it. And that's where I feel that Cobiton has the platform which is helping enterprises to test on either mobile or IoT devices. Uh, we can't afford, or any enterprise, we can't afford to buy hundreds of devices. And again, if you look at the strategic level, maybe as a customer you don't have enough information, you don't know how to do that, and that's where we can help in identifying that, hey, out of 1,000 devices, what is available, what best fit for your enterprise as a strategy, that go, and out of 100 you just pick 10 of them, which is good enough to test. That's what I wanted to convey. Over to you, Kyle, and maybe Cheryl, if we can take some of the questions from the audience, please.
Yes, thank you so much. And just another reminder to our attendees, if you do have a question, please enter it into the question panes in the GoToWebinar menu, and we will get them answered. So we already have a few questions in queue. The first question is, can you arrange a detailed demo of the product and solution?
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's interest around learning more around like what Cobiton does, to crystallize it, we essentially provide a cloud-based SaaS offering to do all your real device testing to drive home these mobile experiences that your teams are working towards. If there is interest to learn more about how we do that, or just get some more general information around what our offering does, please reach out to me via email. You can also submit kind of a contact us through our website, which is www.cobiton.com, and we can tackle any sort of questions or needs of the team.
All right, so thank you. The next question is, we do lots of testing on mobile devices. Can your company show the solution through a small POC in our actual project environment?
Yes, we do offer access to our environment, typically through a 2-week trial. So during that, you would be able to hook in your automation test to the mobile phones. You could validate connecting those mobile devices to different IoT devices to tackle some of those more complex end-to-end scenarios. But yes, we do offer the ability to get access to our tool if you wanted to kind of give it a test drive, so to speak.
So just to add on that, we have done lots of POC on Cobiton platform. So we have done lots of POC for various customer, and we are moving ahead. Those POC getting converted into the actual work in the project.
All right, thank you so much. The next question is it a complex tool to learn? How much time may it take for my team to learn this tool and start using it?
I would say it's very simple to use. We even have a joke almost internally that if you know how to use a mobile phone, you can figure out how to use our platform. So all the devices on our platform are pretty easy to engage with, to do different gestures, to get test evidence. So it's maybe a week to week and a half at most of just kind of understanding the layout, but it's not as complex as like a full-blown automation platform or low code platform where you're doing development or other kind of scriptless based work. So I'd give it an A for ease if I had to give it a grade.
All right. The next question is for cloud device farms, how can these IoT devices be set up to work with real devices?
That's a really good question. So I think if I'm understanding it correctly, what we're getting at here is that a lot of these IoT devices have dependencies on being in close proximity to real mobile phones. So there are various device farm vendors in our space, Cobaton, you may have heard of Perfecto, Sauce Labs, Browser Stack. And a lot of the challenges with those groups is that they do have devices accessible for you in the cloud, but they're managed in data centers, and those data centers typically will not have your IoT devices sitting next to them so they can communicate via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. So the way that Cobaton tackles it is we have a pretty flexible deployment model that we can use to allow devices that you own today to sit where they are, whether that's at your home office, at your offices that we're eventually heading back into, or different geographies worldwide. Those devices can remain as they are, perhaps near these IoT phones, and we have a very simplistic way to kind of cloudify or aggregate all those devices into a browser view. So to crystallize it, in short, the end user would come into a browser view, which they can obviously access from anywhere in the world where they have an internet connection, and then they can run tests on those devices, which are subsequently sitting next to those IoT devices that they're doing kind of more of the end-to-end test on. So it's a unique way that we go about it to help accommodate some of the constraints or complexities of these IoT devices and the dependencies that they have on being in close proximity to the real mobile phones. But that's a good question.
All right, so our next question is, do you have any easy automation approach for ISO, Swift, or CHAPS payment messages?
That's something I can certainly check with the team. As far as automation goes, we'll typically integrate with standard Appium in the various language that you're writing that in, Java, C#, Python, etc. And you'd simply point those tests to our devices. We have worked with groups in the past that need to support OTP, which is one-time passcodes, and that typically come from groups like Twilio or others in order to get access to a device or authenticate accounts. So we've handled that scenario as well.
Okay, the next question is, I want to know if Cobaton have platform or solution to implement AI in automation.
We do. So our the short of it is we do have a scriptless component to our product, and it's not just a record and playback component. We have ways that you can run a test scenario on a Galaxy S8 and then be able to run that across numerous other Android and iOS devices without manipulating anything. So a lot of that is backed by some mostly machine learning that we've done in order to detect those objects on different device types. So that's definitely something that is within our offering if you choose to leverage that to help build some of the functional tests that you're running across mobile. However, it's not mandated. We're usually working with groups or partners like Nalent that may have their own custom framework that they've built or a series of regression tests that they've built that they want to integrate. And we absolutely leave that option open as well in case you kind of want to take a mixed approach depending on current struggles and pain points that you're facing with functional automation testing.
So Kyle, just to add on that, very nicely you explained. Uh, and again, I'll go back to the digital transformation, the IT and business landscape. It's so huge, and it's a complex, and also it is very custom to enterprise. Uh, and going to your previous question, what you answered about the technologies and the scripting, or either it's a APM or Selenium. Now, Selenium tool may be, right choice for customer A. That may not be the right choice for the B. And that's where we say that we are not an IT company, we are a solutioning company. So each enterprise, it's a different. Yes, we are willing to, do a kind of a POC, or we can get involved into discussion. We can help in selecting the right technology for your functional automation. When it comes to AI, again, it's not a technology. It could be right for your enterprise, something different, right? The cost may be the factor in making selection. The IT and business landscape itself plays a role in making selection, that what is right for you. And why I say that, we are in a better position to make a suggestion, because we are working with hundreds and thousands of customer globally, and we see problem firsthand. So we are more experienced in helping in selection of those tools. Again, I'll repeat that in this digital transformation journey, mobile is playing a big role. We cannot ignore. Every individual is doing some transaction using mobile devices, so it has to be a very seamless. Over to you,
Awesome.
Cheryl.
Yeah, the next question is a little long. How do you see the motor vehicle insurance sector placed in relation to IoT progression? My clients look at Marshmallow and Lemonade purely from a data cost per policy perspective, but not from a customer experience angle. What should we be looking at?
Hey Kyle, so before you answer that question, so I'll start with my experience, right? Or your experience. So you're, Geico, State Farm, right? I mean, 2 years or 3 years back, they started offering that, hey, we are sending you these, some IoT devices. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to, pay anything. You just have to keep it in your car, right? So what they are doing, basically, they are tracking our movement, right? Our speed and all those. Uh, so, I mean, I never opted for that because I wanted my freedom. But I'll let you, and it's going, because it's a, so it all goes to providing solution custom to a individual or a segment of customer, right? If I'm a very disciplined driver, they will provide me a better price. Or if I'm a reckless driver, I have to pay more, right? So I'll let you answer that, Kyle.
Yeah, I love that example, Sanjeev. And I mean, I think for some of those, it's kind of educating and maybe trying to get more of a sentiment on where those type of organizations, how they view the whole consumer experience. I think Sanjeev gave a great example that in that scenario, it's more, hey, we're interested in the data. This is going to help us make business decisions. This is going to help us set certain rates, given certain driver history, so on and so forth. But I still think there's a play that, and I'm likely even with Geico or Aflac, like all these groups have ways in which you can file claims and you can do all your policy updates and all of that through a mobile application for the most part. So perhaps to that degree, that mobile app may not be scraping data right from that IoT device, but it's more of a pure play. Hey, do we want to make sure that it's easy to use this app or file a claim through this insurance app? Because if it's not, I mean, I know for me personally, if I couldn't do that through Geico, right, and it just was a pain or it was unpleasant, it'd probably make me at least want to entertain the thought of looking elsewhere. So it's a complex thing to unravel. And I think even at times, you know, expressing this to certain clients, they might say like, hey, thanks, great for the input, but we're still not interested in the whole application side. And I mean, I think that's just kind of the reality depending on where they're at as far as ranking some of these mobile experiences versus other initiatives, maybe around data and analytics and those type of things.
But Kyle, just to add on that, if you look at even it's not only motor vehicle insurance or considering motor vehicle insurance. Now, how easy it is for consumer that you open the, let's say that Geico or State Farm or any of their app, and you just click the picture of the VIN number, right? And all information you have it. So you met with an accident and you have to call Geico, or just take a picture of the VIN number and all information it got pulled, and it send it it's all done. You just a click and it's sent to them. The same I spend a significant time in healthcare insurance industry. That area, even if I look at, you're either you're not filing a claim, but claim related information or your benefit related information, or any approval if you need to get from underwriter. I don't think I'm using my computer for that. I'm just opening my mobile app, and the work it's getting done. So again, mobile, it's a part of our life, and no matter either we are doing banking transaction or playing a video games, right? Right? Playing any games or banking or insurance, or let it be retail. It is just part of a life for personal transaction or business transaction. Over to you, Cheryl.
Okay, awesome. I think we have time for just one more question. What can our company do to identify which devices we need to provide coverage against?
So I'm happy to take a stab at that one. I mean, there's many things I think that can be done. There's a lot of different independent agencies. I referred to one earlier in our report or webinar called Science and Mobile that publish reports around device popularity, device trends, various popularity of different operating systems. So those are great resources. We also work a lot with the groups, enterprises kind of marketing teams where they have more data actually internally that say, hey, of the 3 million people that access our site, this is where they came from, this is the kind of browser they're on, or this kind of mobile device they were on. So there's actually a lot of good internal kind of data that we can often get at as well to help kind of steer some of the discussions or decisions around, hey, we need to make sure that we test with absolute utmost criticality on these X number of devices. We'll put in bucket Y, these don't rank as high of importance, but we still should do some testing on it because they make up this much of our customer demographic. So there's a lot of resources out there. Kobaton has a blog that discusses some of these points, but there's also a lot of other independent ones that I'd be happy to follow up with you on and refer you to if there's interest there.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Sanjeev and Kyle, for answering all those questions so wonderfully. I think that brings us to the end of the session. Over to Sanjeev to end it for us.
So again, thank you all audience from all over the world. Stay safe. If there is any question, reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to answer. If there is any need to, do a small POC, we'll be more than happy to look into that. And again, reach out to us, to me, Kyle or Cheryl. And good luck. Stay safe.
Absolutely. All right, Sanjeev, we'll appreciate it. It was a pleasure as always, and thank you everyone for your time. And everyone enjoy the rest of your day, evenings or mornings, wherever you may be calling in from. So appreciate it again.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.